Welcome to Maine, Multimedia Artificial Intelligence News. Today, we're looking into two really significant and tragic recent events.
Absolutely. Events that captured national attention, but in very different ways.
Exactly. We've gathered a lot of sources, news reports, analyses, expert opinions focusing on the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the tragic stabbing of Iryna Zarutska.
And our goal here isn't to tell you what to think. It's really about distilling the core information from these sources.
Right. We want to lay out the factual accounts, look at the public and political reactions, and even touch on some forensic details.
All to help you get a clearer, maybe more nuanced picture of what happened, and importantly, how it was discussed.
So yeah, we're looking at what the sources say about the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk and the stabbing of Iryna Zarutska on that Charlotte train.
And as you'll hear, the narratives that spun out from these two events show some really stark contrasts.
Okay, let's dig in. Let's start with the horrifying incident in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Iryna Zarutska's tragedy.
Yeah. The victim, Iryna Zarutska, she was only 23, a young Ukrainian woman.
And the sources point out she'd recently come to the US, right?
Seeking safety from the war.
Exactly. Apparently had even lived in a bomb shelter.
Just looking for a fresh start here.
And working hard, too, from what the report said.
Incredibly hard. Juggling jobs at a senior center, a pizza place, even caring for animals.
Just trying to make her way.
And this attack, it happened on August 22nd, 2025. She was on a late-night train in Charlotte.
On her way home from work.
Yeah. Authorities released video later showing her in her work uniform. And less than 5 minutes after she sat down, the man behind her, he pulls out a knife.
Unfolds it.
And just attacks her 3 times, stabbing her in the throat. Oh, it's brutal.
Awful. And passengers tried to help.
It seemed so, but she was pronounced dead right there at the scene.
And the chilling part, according to the reports, no interaction beforehand.
None apparent. Just completely unprovoked, it seems.
And the suspect?
Decarlos Brown Jr., 34 years old, a black man, arrested the same day.
And his background came out pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, police and court records showed, well, a significant criminal history.
14 prior arrests, is that right?
That's what the sources say. Larceny, breaking and entering, stuff like that.
In prison time, too.
5 years, starting in 2015, for robbery with a dangerous weapon. And he'd even been arrested again in January, just months before this attack.
Right, so that history became a major focus in the reaction.
It really did. And this is where your sources start to highlight that intense reaction, especially from certain political figures.
Exactly. The official response was quite strong. Brown Jr. is facing federal charges now for an act causing death on mass transit, which carries the possibility of the death penalty. Yeah, the U.S. Attorney Russ Ferguson even called it a terroristic act.
And he spoke to her family.
He did, acknowledging their grief. But then you had the political commentary layer on top of that.
Very quickly, it seems.
Almost immediately, leaders like former President Trump, Elon Musk, they weighed in very harshly.
What kind of things were said?
Well, Trump talked about evil people, said things like, if we don't handle that, we don't have a country.
And blaming Democrats, pointing to the suspect's mental state, too.
Yes, that was part of his commentary. In the language used by some, it was quite loaded.
Like what?
Terms like thugs and animals, strong calls for law and order, the death penalty.
And you mentioned immigration undertones as well.
Yeah, because she was a refugee. That element was definitely present in some of the discussion. Yeah.
Right. It played into the narrative.
And officials jumped in too.
Oh, yes. U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy criticized Charlotte directly, saying mayors need to keep transit safe or lose funding.
Kind of a direct threat there.
Pretty much. And North Carolina's governor, Josh Stein, called for more cops on the beat.
So a very forceful narrative emerged.
Undeniably. Focused on brutal crime, failures in public safety, the justice system, and demanding a tough response. Okay, now let's pivot. Let's turn to the Charlie Kirk assassination.
Another national tragedy just weeks later.
But as you said, one that generated a distinctly different kind of conversation, according to your sources.
Very different in many ways.
So the victim, Charlie Kirk, 31, a very prominent conservative activist, author, podcaster.
Founder of Turning Point USA, TPUSA, big presence on college campuses.
Right. Advocating conservative politics. He was actually on tour for TPUSA when this happened.
And the incident itself.
September 10th, 2025. He was speaking at Utah Valley University, south of Salt Lake City.
Big event, outdoor amphitheater.
Thousands of people. He was apparently answering a student's question when shots rang out.
Chaos, I imagine.
Total chaos. Eyewitnesses described people yelling, "Run, run, run, get down."
And he was hit.
Shot in the neck, rushed to the hospital, critical condition initially, but President Trump later announced his death.
He did, and the details about the shooter a bit more complex.
Well, reports indicated the shots came from a distance, a building over 500 feet away.
Some sources said 200 yards from a rooftop.
That's quite a distance.
It is. And the suspect was described initially as a white male.
And was someone caught right away?
There were conflicting reports on that. Officials said things like, "We will find you," but it wasn't immediately clear if a suspect was in custody.
Okay, and Kirk himself. Let's talk about his persona. He was known for being, well, quite outspoken.
Definitely. Strong advocate for free speech, gun rights, strict immigration policies.
Often described as polarizing, right? Embracing that culture war style.
Very much so. Making America great again messaging. He often had contentious debates on campuses.
Yeah, sources mentioned student petitions trying to keep him off campuses sometimes.
Including at Utah Valley, though the university cited the First Amendment in approving the event.
And he was very popular, especially among young conservative men.
Hugely influential, credited even with helping Trump in the 2024 election.
So, a major figure, and the reaction to his death reflected that prominence.
Absolutely. It was immediate and very high profile. The governor of Utah called it a political assassination.
Right. And President Trump announcing his death, the flags lowered.
Flags at the White House lowered to half staff within an hour, ordered to stay that way until Sunday. That's significant.
And Trump's praise for him. Said Kirk understood the heart of the youth better than Charlie. High praise indeed.
Condemnations were widespread, even across the aisle.
They were. Governor Gavin Newsom, for instance, called the attack disgusting, vile, and reprehensible.
And his son had hosted Kirk on a podcast.
Yeah, quite a connection there. Newsom urged rejecting political violence in every form.
Did this raise security questions for public figures?
Immediately. Commentators noted the contrast. Trump speaking behind bulletproof glass. Kirk's events lacking similar measures.
Even despite being seen as a lightning rod, as one source put it.
Exactly. A lightning rod for both sides, really.
And there was that internal Secret Service issue, too.
Right. An agent put on leave, security clearance revoked, for a negative Facebook post about Kirk.
Saying he spewed hate and racism.
Yeah, which prompted the Secret Service director to issue a memo.
Reminding staff about impartiality.
Exactly. Operate without bias, don't exacerbate the problem of rising political attacks. Okay, so let's unpack this contrast you mentioned earlier. Two horrifying tragedies weeks apart.
Both nationally reported, both deeply shocking.
Yet, the sources suggest a really striking difference in how they were portrayed and reacted to, especially by public figures.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how the narrative seems to shift based on, well, perceived political utility or maybe the demographics involved?
So, spell that out based on the sources. The Charlotte case.
With the black suspect, Decarlos Brown Jr., the coverage, particularly from certain leaders, hammered law and order.
Using that harsh language.
Thugs.
Animals.
Precisely. Very dehumanizing. A strong focus on his criminal record, the need for tougher penalties. It was framed as a systemic failure of justice and safety.
Okay, and then the Kirk case with the suspect described as white.
A stark contrast. The reaction from those same leaders, often more restrained, sometimes even notably silent, especially regarding the suspect's identity or direct condemnation of him.
No white thug language.
Definitely not. The focus shifted. It became more about the political context of threat to democracy, free speech, stability.
More abstract threats.
Kind of. And you heard more vague mentions of, say, mental illness or calls for unity rather than direct calls for retribution against the perpetrator, using that kind of loaded language.
So this isn't just a subtle difference in tone, is it? Your sources suggest something deeper.
They really do. They point towards potential racial and political double standard in these public reactions.
How so?
Well, when the suspect is black, the tragedy seems readily used to push narratives about fear, crime, punishment, often fitting a pre-existing script.
And when the suspect is white?
The language softens, the focus shifts, or maybe the details about the suspect are less emphasized. This kind of selective outrage.
It shows that tragedy can be weaponized.
Exactly, to fit a political agenda. And the sources suggest this sends a message, particularly to communities of color, that maybe some lives or some crimes are more politically useful than others.
Creating a kind of hierarchy of victimhood based on political expediency.
Yeah.
It seems like race is a clear factor, but you also mentioned symbolism. Is it just about race?
Well, race is visible, but it connects to a bigger picture too. It's about what each case represents symbolically.
The Charlotte stabbing fits neatly into narratives about, say, urban crime, safety, punishment, things that resonate with certain political bases.
Right, and Kirk's assassination?
That taps into different narratives: political polarization, ideological extremism, threats to free speech, maybe national stability,
So each tragedy becomes a kind of stage.
a stage for different political agendas. Yeah. Different arguments get played out depending on the specifics of the case.
Hmm. That's a really important point. Okay, let's shift here slightly. There was a specific detail in the Kirk case that got a lot of online buzz.
The long distance shot.
Exactly. The idea that an untrained 22-year-old, that was the description floating around, could make a shot from, say, 150, 200 feet.
Roughly 45 to 60 meters. Yeah, that definitely sparked skepticism online. Seems implausible to many.
But your sources dive into the forensic reality of that. Is it actually implausible?
Well, the skepticism is understandable, but the sources make it pretty clear such a shot is plausible under certain conditions. It doesn't automatically imply, elite sniper skills.
So what makes it plausible?
Several factors. First, the mechanical capability of firearms. Many common civilian rifles, even some handguns, are inherently accurate enough to hit a person-sized target at that range.
It's just built into the design.
Pretty much. Their design and the ammunition allow for it. Second, aiming aids.
Like sights or scopes?
Exactly. Standard factory sights, red dot optics, basic scopes they make aiming much more feasible at those mid-range distances, even without specific military training.
Okay, what else?
Stability. This is huge. If a shooter rests the firearm on a stable surface, like a rooftop edge, a windowsill, anything solid,
It makes a big difference.
dramatically improves accuracy. That's just basic physics, basic shooting principles.
And the untrained aspect?
Well, no military training doesn't mean zero experience. Millions of civilians hunt, sport shoot, practice informally at ranges.
So they might be quite capable at 50 meters.
Many could reliably hit a target at that distance under controlled conditions. Yeah, prior experience matters, even if it's not formal training.
Are there other factors?
Like luck? Absolutely. Situational elements play a role. Was the target stationary? Was the lighting good? Was there a clear line of sight? And yes, sometimes a bit of luck is involved in any single shot.
So one successful shot doesn't prove expertise.
Not necessarily. And initial video perspectives can sometimes be misleading about distances, too.
Right. So if it's plausible, how do investigators actually figure out if that specific shot happened as described? They don't just rely on plausibility.
No, definitely not. They rely on science, not speculation. Forensic teams conduct rigorous analysis.
Like what?
Ballistic analysis, looking at trajectories, wound analysis, studying entry points, recovering projectiles if possible.
And testing the weapon itself.
If it's recovered, yes. They test it under controlled conditions to see its capabilities. They also use chemical tests.
To determine distance?
Things like the modified grease test can help estimate muzzle to target distance from gunshot residue patterns.
And reconstructing the scene.
Crucial, they build 3D models, measure sight lines, angles, distances precisely.
Tying it all together.
Exactly. And they corroborate all this physical evidence with surveillance footage, witness statements, digital evidence.
It's a multi-layered scientific process, much more reliable than that initial online speculation then.
Far more reliable. It's a good reminder, really. Plausibility isn't probability, and probability isn't proof. Evidence is proof.
Okay, now there's one more really difficult, sensitive question that sources tackled in the wake of Kirk's death. Did his own rhetoric, his persona, did it somehow provoke his demise?
Yeah, that's a really tough one. And it's crucial, as you said, not to slip into blaming the victim.
Absolutely not. But the sources explore the idea of increased risk, right? The complex factors involved.
They do, and they offer arguments on both sides of that provocation idea, specifically in terms of contributing to risk.
So what arguments support the idea that his style increased his risk?
Well, first, his controversial persona. Sources point to his confrontational, polarizing style, framing opponents as enemies, that Trump-style rhetoric.
It could heighten tensions, make him more of a target.
That's the argument. It increased his visibility as a symbol for those who opposed his views. Second, just his public exposure
Speaking at large events.
on provocative topics, guns, immigration, free speech, it inherently increased his vulnerability just by being out there in that way.
And the broader climate.
Right. Experts note we're in a period of rising political violence, and harsh rhetoric generally can contribute to a more hostile environment, potentially leading someone down a path to radicalization.
Okay, those are the arguments for increased risk. What about the arguments against framing it as provocation or blaming him?
The most important one, the perpetrator's responsibility.
Sole responsibility.
Absolutely. Regardless of how provocative someone is, the moral and legal responsibility for an assassination lies 100% with the person who commits the violence. Provocation never equals permission.
That's a critical distinction.
It is. Also, the sources point out many public figures across the political spectrum use strong, even polarizing rhetoric, and they aren't assassinated.
Exactly. So while rhetoric might increase risk or backlash, attacks like this remain statistically very rare.
Correlation isn't causation here.
So it's not an inevitable outcome of strong rhetoric.
No. And despite concerns about rising political violence, actual assassinations are still, thankfully, rare, and public opinion overwhelmingly rejects political violence as a legitimate tool.
So it's a nuanced conclusion then.
Very nuanced. The sources seem to suggest that yes, Kirk's persona and style may have contributed to conditions that increased his risk profile.
Made him more vulnerable, perhaps.
Possibly, but, and this is the key part, this doesn't make his assassination inevitable, nor does it imply he caused it or bears any blame.
The blame rests with the shooter.
Entirely. And we also need to consider the broader structural issues in society that allow political violence to fester, rather than just focusing on the individual rhetoric alone.
Right, it's a complex web. Okay, we've really covered a lot of ground today.
We have two incredibly profound tragedies.
And the very different public and political reactions they sparked. We looked at the forensic side of things too and wrestled with that tough question about rhetoric and risk.
And hopefully, by synthesizing these different sources, we've helped you see beyond just the headlines.
Yeah, to understand the layers of information, the interpretations, the narratives that get built. This deep dive really has highlighted how external factors, political framing, and scientific fine-facting all shape our understanding of these complex events.
And maybe how those narratives can be deliberately shaped sometimes.
That too.
It leaves us with the question, doesn't it? What does it mean for us, for society, when grief and outrage themselves become just another political battleground?
And how do we, as citizens trying to stay informed, tell the difference between genuine concern and maybe political opportunism when tragedy strikes?
Something for you to definitely ponder and maybe explore further as you encounter these discussions in the future.